The courtroom was silent, but the tension was so thick it felt like it could snap at any moment. Every eye was fixed on Jasmine Crockett, poised at the center of the room, her presence calm yet electric. This was no ordinary hearing. Reporters, interns, and legal scholars lined the back benches, their pens frozen above notebooks, their breaths held in anticipation. The air carried a peculiar mixture of disbelief and awe, because what was about to happen was almost unimaginable. Across from her, the opposition lawyers shuffled papers, whispered to one another, their confidence barely concealing the doubt flickering in their eyes. They had thought themselves untouchable, masters of courtroom intimidation. But Jasmine Crockett did not flinch. Her reputation as a legal tactician, a fighter for justice, and a voice for those often silenced had preceded her, and now the room was about to witness it firsthand. Then she spoke. One line delivered with such precision, such clarity, that the courtroom collectively inhaled as if the air itself had stopped moving. It was not just what she said, it was the way she said it, measured, deliberate, unwavering. The words struck not like a hammer, but like sunlight cutting through storm clouds, illuminating a truth that no one could ignore. A murmur of astonishment ran through the room. The opposition's confident smirks faltered. For the first time, they were truly challenged, not by volume or theatrics, but by intelligence, by mastery of law, by undeniable moral authority. Then came the moment that would be replayed in legal circles, social media feeds, and history books alike. A single, spontaneous round of applause. It started small, a hesitant clap from a young clerk, then another and another, until it swelled into a wave that engulfed the courtroom. Judge Amul Thapar leaned forward, a rare visible sign of admiration crossing his face. Even the most skeptical observers couldn't hide their respect. The room, once charged with tension and apprehension, now shimmered with an almost sacred recognition of brilliance. This was not just a legal victory in the making. It was a declaration that integrity, intellect, and courage could command respect even in spaces designed to intimidate. And as Jasmine Crockett held the room in her gaze, calm and unwavering, everyone knew what was about to unfold next would not merely be a courtroom triumph. It would be a moment that left the entire nation holding its breath, wondering how one person could redefine what justice looks like. The courtroom was still buzzing from that first ripple of applause, but the stakes had only begun to reveal themselves. This hearing was not merely a legal procedure. It was a test of values, of who could wield law as a tool for justice and who would hide behind arrogance and tradition. Every person in that room understood that the outcome carried consequences far beyond the walls of the courthouse. Families, communities, and countless unseen eyes across the nation were watching, hoping that reason and dignity would prevail. Opposition lawyers whispered furiously, their previous confidence cracking under the weight of scrutiny. They tried to regain control with technical jargon and procedural objections, but the room had already shifted. The tension was no longer just about law. It was about legitimacy, about moral authority, about the very definition of fairness. Spectators in the gallery leaned forward, sensing that they were witnessing a turning point in real time. Social media feeds outside were already alive with speculation. News blurts blinked across phones in the back pockets of journalists, hinting at the drama that was about to escalate. Jasmine Crockett stood unmoved, a portrait of composure and quiet power. Every argument she prepared, every case she had studied, every moment of sacrifice in her journey as an advocate had led to this instant. She was not just presenting evidence. She was embodying a principle, a call to justice that could not be ignored. The audience felt it, almost viscerally. The sense that the balance of authority might shift with a single statement, a single question, a single rebuttal. And yet, the opposition was formidable. They relied on intimidation, on procedural mastery, and on the assumption that the courtroom would reward volume over reason. Their strategy was to dominate, to overwhelm, to drown out the truth in a tide of arrogance. But Jasmine Crockett had a different approach. Calm, deliberate, and unflinching, she was poised to dismantle their confidence piece by piece, using precision, intellect, and an unwavering commitment to justice as her arsenal. Outside the courtroom, the world waited. Citizens, legal scholars, and activists followed live updates, knowing that this was not a typical trial. There was something electric in the air, a collective anticipation that justice itself would be on trial. Not only the laws being debated, but the moral compass guiding them. What happens next changes everything. Whispers spread across social media, capturing the sense of FOMO that gripped observers worldwide. Everyone wanted to see the moment when skill, principle, and courage converged. And as the room held its breath, Jasmine Crockett's gaze swept across the courtroom. Every lawyer, every clerk, every judge understood that this was no ordinary hearing. Every word spoken, every motion filed, and every pause in the room would contribute to a crescendo that could redefine respect, fairness, and authority in law. And while the opposition scrambled to regain footing, it was becoming clear. They were about to face more than a legal mind. They were about to confront the moral clarity and brilliance of a hero who would not be silenced. The courtroom had shifted, the stakes had escalated, and in that charged silence, one truth resonated above all. The next move would determine not just the outcome of a case, but the very narrative of justice itself. The opposition lawyers were no strangers to the courtroom. They had built careers on technical mastery, relentless pressure, and a reputation for leaving even seasoned judges impressed or intimidated. On the surface, they seemed untouchable, a force of legal precision that few dared challenge. But beneath the tailored suits and confident postures lay arrogance, a belief that the law was a tool to showcase dominance rather than seek justice. They had grown comfortable in that space, accustomed to their victories being unchallenged, their authority unquestioned. In law schools and chambers across the country, whispers of their tactics circulated. They had a history of exploiting loopholes, leveraging procedural technicalities, and using spectacle to overshadow substance. Colleagues spoke in hushed tones about their disdain for challengers who approached the law with moral conviction, seeing them as naive or idealistic. This was a courtroom culture that rewarded aggression, not integrity. And the opposition had perfected it over years of high-profile cases. Yet, it was more than just arrogance that made them formidable. It was a confidence rooted in familiarity. They knew the playbook, the rhythms of argument, the subtle ways to sway a jury or tilt a judge. They had memorized the rules, honed their timing, and cultivated an aura of untouchable expertise. But in their certainty lay a fatal flaw, an underestimation of anyone who approached law not as a game to be won, but as a duty to uphold justice. And Jasmine Crockett, with her calm intellect and moral clarity, was precisely that type of challenger. The previous victories had conditioned them to expect compliance. Opponents faltering under pressure was the norm. Judges nodding at their logic was routine. Even social media buzzed with praise when they triumphed. But this time, the courtroom air was different. There was a ripple of tension that no amounts of rehearsed confidence could mask. The opposition sensed it instinctively. The quiet, unwavering power of someone who could outthink and outmaneuver, not through aggression, but through brilliance. Friends and adversaries alike recalled moments from prior high-stakes cases where the opposition's arrogance had caused them to misjudge key witnesses or underestimate a prepared argument. Yet they rarely faced someone who combined legal prowess with ethical clarity. Jasmine Crockett was a different force entirely. Her reputation for dismantling intimidation with logic and unshakable composure preceded her, and even seasoned observers understood that the opposition's usual tactics might crumble under her precision. The villain's world had always been one where law served the powerful, where confidence could overshadow truth, and where mistakes were rare because fear suppressed challenge. But as the courtroom doors closed and the audience settled into their seats, the opposition's veneer of invincibility began to waver. They were about to encounter a legal mind that refused to be intimidated, a moral compass that refused to bend, and a hero who had prepared for every possible gambit. Every smirk, every confident gesture, every whispered strategy was now a gamble. The opposition had dominated courts before, but they had never faced someone like Jasmine Crockett. Someone whose intellect, preparation, and integrity turned the game of intimidation on its head. And in that realization, the first cracks appeared. Pride, once their greatest ally, now threatened to become their undoing. As the courtroom held its collective breath, the contrast was undeniable. On one side, arrogance, experience, and a reliance on intimidation. On the other, brilliance, composure, and the unwavering pursuit of justice. The stage was set, the players were in position, and every observer knew that what was about to unfold would not only test the opposition's skill, but expose the very limitations of arrogance when confronted by true mastery. The opposition believed they were ready. They were not. And in that charged silence, every heart in the courtroom understood. The next move would not just challenge their authority, it would shatter it. Jasmine Crockett's journey to this courtroom was neither simple nor conventional. From the earliest days of her life, she had understood the weight of perseverance. Growing up, she watched her community navigate systemic barriers, witnessing firsthand how injustice could silence voices and limit opportunities. Her parents had instilled in her a profound respect for hard work, resilience, and the belief that one person could make a difference if they refused to yield to fear or prejudice. That foundation would become the cornerstone of her remarkable legal career. Education was never just a pathway. For Jasmine, it was a battleground. She excelled academically, often outperforming peers while navigating environments where expectations were low and skepticism was high. Each success was earned through diligence and determination, each setback endured with unshakable resolve. Her mentors recognized her brilliance early, noting her uncanny ability to dissect complex legal arguments, anticipate counterpoints, and articulate solutions with clarity and precision. But beyond intellect, it was her moral compass that distinguished her. She viewed the law not as a ladder to personal power, but as a shield for those whose rights were constantly threatened. Her early career was marked by cases that demanded both courage and creativity. Jasmine took on causes that others avoided: immigration rights, civil liberties, and defending marginalized communities against systemic inequities. Each case was a story of struggle, an opportunity to confront not just legal obstacles, but the biases entrenched in the system itself. She learned that the courtroom was not just a place of procedure, but a stage where courage, knowledge, and humanity could reshape outcomes. Every argument, every brief, Every cross-examination became a testament to her relentless pursuit of justice. It was not without personal sacrifice. Long nights, grueling preparation, and moments of doubt tested her endurance. She faced colleagues who questioned her methods, opponents who sought to intimidate, and systemic structures designed to discourage persistence. Yet through every challenge, Jasmine remained steadfast. She understood that brilliance alone was insufficient. True impact required empathy, strategy, and the courage to confront entrenched power. This combination of intellect and principle would prove decisive in every courtroom she entered. By the time she arrived at this trial, Jasmine Crockett was more than a lawyer. She was a symbol for those whose voices were often dismissed, for those whose struggles demanded advocacy, and for a generation that craved representation grounded in integrity. Her reputation had preceded her, whispered among colleagues, chronicled by journalists, and celebrated quietly by the communities she served. Yet she remained remarkably unassuming, channeling all recognition into preparation, poise, and an unwavering focus on the task at hand. Her courtroom presence was a reflection of years of careful cultivation. Every gesture, every inflection, every pause was purposeful. She understood the psychology of the room, the subtle cues of judges and juries, and the impact of framing arguments with both logic and moral authority. But more importantly, she understood that her greatest weapon was not intimidation or theatrics. It was truth. And when truth was paired with meticulous preparation, the effect was electric. In this moment, standing before Judge Amul Thapar, in a courtroom full of skeptics and admirers alike, every element of her journey converged. Her childhood lessons in resilience, her academic excellence, her unwavering advocacy for justice, and her capacity to remain composed under pressure were all now tools in a precise and deliberate arsenal. She was uniquely prepared for this confrontation, not just to win a case, but to command respect and redefine the narrative of what it meant to stand for justice in the face of arrogance. As she adjusted her notes and met the gaze of the courtroom, it was clear to every observer. Jasmine Crockett was not merely present, she was in control. Every past challenge had been a rehearsal, every struggle a preparation for this exact moment. And as the room awaited her first words, there was an almost palpable sense that what was about to occur would transcend ordinary legal battles. It would be a display of intellect, courage, and integrity so profound that even the most hardened skeptics could not help but recognize it. And as the murmurs of anticipation grew, one undeniable truth emerged. This was more than a courtroom. This was a stage upon which brilliance and justice would collide, and Jasmine Crockett was ready to illuminate the path forward. The audience, both inside and beyond the courthouse walls, sensed it. The confrontation was imminent, and the outcome would echo far beyond the confines of these perceived. The moment Jasmine Crockett began her argument, the courtroom shifted again. The opposition tried to assert dominance, launching a barrage of technical objections and rapid-fire citations. Their voices, once commanding, now carried an edge of frustration. Each attempted interruption was met with her unwavering composure, a calmness that seemed to amplify the tension rather than dissipate it. Every observer could feel the atmosphere tighten, as though the very walls of the courthouse were holding their collective breath. The opposition tried everything they had used successfully in the past: aggressive posturing, sharp retorts, subtle intimidation. But Jasmine Crockett was unmoved. Her words, measured and precise, cut through the noise like a scalpel. She responded to every challenge not with anger or volume, but with evidence, precedent, and an unshakable moral clarity that rendered the theatrics ineffective. The contrast was stark, the arrogance of the opposition meeting the serene authority of a true master of law. Eyes in the gallery widened as she dismantled their first line of attack, exposing contradictions and highlighting oversights they had relied upon for years. Gasps rippled through the courtroom, whispers spreading like wildfire. Even seasoned clerks leaned forward, captivated not by spectacle, but by the elegance of her reasoning. The opposition, for the first time, showed signs of real uncertainty. Their confident gestures faltered, their rapid speech slowed. They were struggling to keep pace with an opponent who had anticipated their every move. Judge Amul Thapar watched intently, his brow furrowed in concentration. The courtroom had become a stage where intellect met hubris, where preparation collided with overconfidence. Every pause, every pointed question, every subtle nod from Jasmine carried weight. The audience sensed that they were witnessing more than a debate. They were witnessing a demonstration of principle triumphing over pride. Social media outside courthouse walls began buzzing, followers sharing real-time updates. Crockett dismantling opposition argument, courtroom on edge. This is historic. As the tension escalated, small signs of vulnerability appeared in the opposition. A whispered conversation between lawyers grew longer. Glances exchanged in the corner suggested they were recalibrating, struggling to regain control. But Jasmine Crockett remained the calm center of the storm. Her voice never wavered. Her gestures were deliberate. Her eyes steady. With every counterpoint, the balance of authority shifted ever more in her favor. The courtroom was alive with emotion, anticipation, admiration, and a hint of disbelief. Spectators felt an almost physical connection to the drama unfolding before them, understanding that the outcome depended not on theatrics, but on mastery, preparation, and moral clarity. The opposition's confidence, once nearly palpable, was now fragile, teetering on the edge of collapse. And yet everyone sensed that the defining moment, the revelation that would seal the hero's triumph, had not yet arrived. As Jasmine prepared to deliver the next segment of her argument, the air thickened with suspense. The audience inside the courtroom leaned forward, the press poised to capture every reaction, and viewers across the nation waited with bated breath. The stage was set. The confrontation had escalated to its highest tension yet, and in that charged silence, one undeniable truth lingered. The next words spoken by Jasmine Crockett would not merely answer questions, they would command respect, challenge arrogance, and leave an indelible mark on everyone present. Jasmine Crockett took a slow, deliberate breath, and in that pause, the courtroom seemed to still. Every eye was fixed on her, every ear straining to catch the first word. This was more than argumentation. It was a performance of intellect, integrity, and courage. The opposition, previously brimming with confidence, now shifted uneasily in their seats, sensing the storm that was about to be unleashed. Their smirks were gone, replaced with tension, as if they knew they had underestimated the force across from them. She began methodically, dissecting the opposition's claims with precision. Each point was countered not with aggression, but with clarity, evidence, and logic so compelling that the courtroom absorbed it like a revelation. A reference to precedent here, a factual correction there, and suddenly the narrative the opposition had relied upon began to unravel. Each sentence built upon the last, forming an unassailable chain that left no room for doubt. It was a masterclass in strategy, calm, deliberate, and devastatingly effective. The opposition tried to interject, but their objections faltered under her poise. Where they had relied on intimidation, she relied on intellect. Where they had assumed authority would protect them, she exposed the cracks in their reasoning. Every interruption was met with measured acknowledgement. A pause that amplified her authority rather than diminished it. The room leaned in collectively, captivated by the elegance of her argumentation. Even the clerks and reporters, seasoned in courtroom theatrics, found themselves holding their breath. As she advanced her case, Jasmine introduced a pivotal piece of evidence, a fact so precise, so undeniable, that it struck at the core of the opposition's strategy. A hush fell over the room as the implications settled in. The opposition exchanged nervous glances, whispering in urgent, clipped tones, attempting to recalibrate their approach. But the rhythm had shifted irreversibly. Every word Jasmine spoke was a spotlight illuminating the flaws in their logic, exposing the arrogance that had carried them too far for too long. Her delivery was impeccable. Pauses punctuated key points, giving the audience time to absorb the weight of her argument. Each sentence was constructed not only to dismantle the opposition's claims, but to elevate the principles she championed: justice, integrity, and accountability. The courtroom, once a theater of tension, had become a stage of revelation. Observers could feel the weight of history pressing into that moment, the realization that brilliance and moral clarity could command respect even in a space designed to intimidate. The opposition's confidence continued to erode. Subtle cues, the tightening of jaws, the avoidance of eye contact, the hesitant gestures betrayed their discomfort. Their once dominant presence shrank as Jasmine's authority expanded. Judge Amul Thapar, previously an impartial observer, leaned forward, his expression registering appreciation and acknowledgement. Every eye in the courtroom was now tracking the hero's every word, witnessing the dismantling of arrogance with surgical precision. Outside, the ripple effects had already begun. Social media feeds erupted with live updates, video clips of the courtroom moment circulating instantly, hashtags trending nationwide, and experts weighing in with admiration for the precision and composure on display. Analysts called it a turning point, a demonstration of how intellect and principle could upend the expectations of those who relied on spectacle and intimidation. The audience beyond the courtroom walls felt connected to the moment, collectively witnessing the dismantling of arrogance by reason and courage. Then came the crescendo, a final, decisive line that crystallized her argument. It was not just a rebuttal, it was a statement of principle, a declaration that truth and justice could not be overshadowed by bluster or ego. The courtroom erupted, not in chaos, but in recognition. A wave of applause started subtly, hesitantly, and then swelled as more and more observers joined in. Judge Amul Thapar's nod was subtle but unmistakable, an acknowledgement of brilliance, a rare expression of judicial respect. The opposition sat stunned, their confidence shattered, confronted with the undeniable fact that they had been outmaneuvered not by theatrics, but by intellect and integrity. The moment extended, drawing out a mixture of awe and vindication. Witnesses whispered to one another. Clerks took notes with admiration, and journalists prepared to relay the scene as a historic example of courtroom mastery. The applause continued, a spontaneous acknowledgement of skill, composure, and moral authority. Jasmine Crockett remained calm, allowing the recognition to settle over the room without embellishment or fanfare. Her presence alone conveyed the weight of what had just occurred. A hero had spoken, and the room had listened. And in that suspended moment, every observer understood the magnitude of the impact. This was not merely a tactical victory, it was a paradigm shift. The opposition, once untouchable, had been exposed. The audience, once skeptical, had been inspired. And the lesson was clear. Preparation, intellect, and unwavering dedication to principle could not be ignored. As the courtroom settled, the ripples of this triumph began to extend beyond its walls, setting the stage for reactions, recognition, and consequences that would reverberate long after the trial ended. The courtroom was still reverberating from the applause, but outside, the impact had already gone viral. News alerts flashed across smartphones, headlines screamed admiration, and social media exploded with clips of Jasmine Crockett's performance. Hashtag Crockett Stands Tall trended within minutes, shared by journalists, activists, and ordinary citizens who recognized the magnitude of what had just occurred. The scene became a touchstone for conversations about integrity, brilliance, and the rare but transformative moments when courage meets preparation. Commentators, political analysts, and legal experts dissected the hearing in real time. Pundits acknowledged the precision of her arguments, the calmness under pressure, and the moral clarity that had left even the most seasoned opposition speechless. "This is a masterclass in courtroom strategy," one analyst tweeted. "Jasmine Crockett just redefined respect in the legal arena," wrote another. The reactions weren't limited to professionals. Communities whose rights she had defended celebrated her triumph as a validation of their struggles and a reminder that their voices mattered. Inside the courtroom, the opposition remained stunned. Their usual tactics had crumbled, leaving them scrambling to reclaim composure. The smugness and confidence that had once defined their presence were replaced with a subtle, almost imperceptible dread. Every whispered consultation revealed the realization that they had underestimated their opponent. Their aura of invincibility had shattered, replaced with the uncomfortable awareness that brilliance and principle could dismantle the strongest of defenses. The ripple effect was immediate. Legal forums debated every line of her argument, dissecting the strategy, the rhetoric, and the moral precision that had carried her through. Young lawyers and law students expressed awe, sharing clips and insights, drawing inspiration from her methodical dismantling of intimidation. "I've never seen anything like this," one student wrote online. "It's proof that preparation and courage matter more than swagger." The courtroom itself became a symbol, immortalized in photographs and recordings, representing a moment when dignity and intellect triumphed over arrogance. As social media feeds filled with admiration, the hashtag storm spread beyond legal circles. Celebrities, politicians, and activists joined the chorus, amplifying the recognition of her achievement. Messages of support poured in, praising not only her legal prowess, but her composure, her courage, and the example she set for anyone who had ever felt silenced by systems built to intimidate. The nation watched, riveted, as the story unfolded like a cinematic drama, the lines of hero and villain clearly drawn. Within the courthouse, murmurs of astonishment continued long after the applause had faded. Clerks, lawyers, and spectators replayed moments in their minds, recognizing the subtle mastery in her delivery. The pauses, the inflections, the choice of evidence, and the timing of every rebuttal. Even the judge's rare visible nods became symbolic, a quiet but powerful acknowledgement that brilliance deserved respect, and that integrity could not be overshadowed by arrogance. The opposition, now acutely aware of the stakes they had ignored, left the courtroom with faces marked by disbelief. They had been challenged not just legally, but morally, intellectually, and strategically. Observers could see that the experience would linger with them, reshaping the way they approached every argument, every courtroom, every adversary in the future. And beyond the walls of the courthouse, the country felt it. Communities inspired by her journey celebrated a victory that transcended the specifics of the case. People shared personal stories, relating her triumph to their own struggles, drawing strength and validation from her example. Across social media, the narrative was clear. This was a moment that had captured hearts and minds alike, a testament to what could happen when preparation, courage, and moral clarity converged. Yet, even in the wake of applause and admiration, one thing remained suspended in the air: the lesson that would linger far beyond the courtroom. Justice, brilliance, and integrity had collided with arrogance and intimidation, and the aftermath was only beginning to unfold. Observers everywhere understood that the next chapter, the resolution of this confrontation, would carry meaning not just for those present, but for everyone who believed in the power of courage, intellect, and principle. In the stillness that followed the courtroom applause, a quiet truth settled over everyone present. Brilliance, integrity, and courage could not be overshadowed. Jasmine Crockett's performance was more than a tactical victory. It was a demonstration of what justice could look like when principle guided action. The opposition, once confident and domineering, had been humbled, not by theatrics or force, but by the sheer clarity of truth and preparation. And the audience, both inside the courtroom and beyond, felt the weight of that lesson in their bones. This was a moment that transcended law. It was about dignity prevailing over arrogance, intellect rising above intimidation, and moral clarity cutting through the fog of ego. Every person witnessing the scene, journalists, clerks, students, activists, ordinary citizens following updates, understood that what had just unfolded was a template for courage in any arena. The courtroom had become a theater of inspiration, where the hero's brilliance illuminated a path for all who had ever felt underestimated or silenced. Jasmine's composure, her unwavering adherence to principle, and her meticulous preparation all contributed to a moment of shared recognition that the fight for justice is as much about moral courage as it is about legal expertise. She had shown that standing firm in truth, even against seemingly insurmountable opposition, could compel respect and enact change. The applause, the viral clips, the social media storm, they were not just reactions. They were validation that when someone acts with integrity, it resonates beyond the immediate moment. In reflecting on the confrontation, it was clear that the lesson extended far beyond the courthouse walls. It was a reminder to communities, especially those whose voices are often marginalized, that intelligence, preparation, and courage could challenge entrenched power. It was a call to action, an invitation to embody dignity in the face of hostility, to prepare relentlessly, and to confront injustice without compromise. Jasmine Crockett had not only won a legal argument, she had modeled a philosophy of resilience and principle that anyone could adopt in their own lives. The opposition's downfall served as a cautionary tale. Arrogance and intimidation may appear powerful, but they crumble when confronted by mastery and moral clarity. Their confidence, once a shield, became a liability. Every observer could see the contrast vividly. The hero, composed and radiant, standing on a foundation of integrity, versus the opposition, rattled and exposed, undone by their own overconfidence. The visual and emotional impact of that juxtaposition lingered, imprinting a lesson on everyone present. And yet, the story did not end with confrontation. It ended with inspiration. As Jasmine left the courtroom, her presence resonated as a symbol of what could be achieved when knowledge, preparation, and courage align. The applause, the admiration, and the social media recognition were external reflections of a deeper truth: that the triumph of principle over ego is a story worth telling, remembering, and sharing. Her actions demonstrated that heroism is not loud or performative. It is measured, intentional, and rooted in the unyielding pursuit of justice. For the audience, the lesson was clear. The world responds to those who act with integrity. The courtroom had borne witness to a moral and intellectual victory that would ripple outward, inspiring others to approach their own challenges with determination and dignity. Jasmine Crockett's brilliance was not just in her legal skill, but in the way she carried herself with calm authority, demonstrating that courage tempered by preparation can move not only judges and juries, but entire communities. And as the echoes of that day spread across social media, news outlets, and private conversations, the message crystallized. Justice, intellect, and moral courage are forces that cannot be silenced. The hero had triumphed, not just in law, but in example, leaving every observer with a sense of possibility, empowerment, and hope. In that moment, the world understood brilliance paired with integrity is unstoppable. And the lessons of this courtroom would resonate far beyond the walls that had witnessed them. As the courtroom emptied and the echoes of applause faded, one thing was unmistakable. Jasmine Crockett had left an indelible mark. The headlines, the social media storm, the admiration from colleagues and strangers alike, all pointed to a simple truth: integrity, brilliance, and courage could command respect, even in spaces designed to intimidate. This was more than a legal victory. It was a moment that validated the power of preparation, principle, and unwavering moral clarity. For viewers, the lesson extended beyond law or politics. It was a call to embody these qualities in daily life, to confront challenges with dignity, and to pursue truth even when the odds seemed insurmountable. Every community, every individual who had ever felt marginalized or underestimated could draw strength from her example. Her triumph demonstrated that courage is contagious, that intellect commands attention, and that integrity never goes unnoticed. Now, it's your turn. Witness brilliance, celebrate courage, stand up for justice in your own life, and share this story with those who need inspiration. Subscribe to stay connected to stories that challenge, inspire, and remind us that one person's voice, when wielded with knowledge and conviction, can echo across a nation. Be part of the movement that believes in truth, integrity, and the relentless pursuit of justice. And remember, the applause may have ended in the courtroom, but its lessons continue to resonate. Every act of preparation, every stand for principle, every moment of courage can change the world. Jasmine Crockett proved it. The question now is, will you?